Thank you. My name is Jeff Clayton. I'm the Executive Director of the American Bail Coalition. I will testify fast. Brevity is the soul of wit. Proud graduate of the University of Rochester. New York already has a pretty good bail system. When I look at it nationally, New York is one of 4 states that don't allow considerations of dangerousness in the setting of bail, which means it's purely an appearance bond, and that's why the bails in New York are so low. New York incarcerates generally less than 10% of all arrestees, which is also low when compared to the rest of the state. Looking at the issue of preventative detention, to me that's the biggest part of this bill, which is giving the state to detain persons without bail. That's been abused in every system that I've seen that's gotten it. Nobody thought it was constitutional prior to the federal government doing it. And since 1984, pretrial incarceration has increased by 267% in the federal system. Your neighbor in New Jersey is using it now. Well, guess what? They're filing preventative detention motions in 43.6% of all cases, detaining 19% of all defendants. That's dangerous to crack that door, and it'd be a fundamental policy shift in New York that could literally probably increase the amount of incarceration you have in New Jersey. Speaking of the cost, Attorney General Perino in New Jersey issued a report, and the report said, we just don't know how much this thing is going to cost, and they still don't. Of course, the testimony was mentioned an economist who looked at this who's estimating that it's costing roughly around $500,000 a year. Every county in New York would have to create a pretrial program in order to implement the conditions that are alternatives to bail that judges would impose, which would be heavily expensive in New York and could cost, I think, millions of dollars. Finally, I would point out that this is really a restriction on judicial discretion. The question of bail is, what is the least restrictive form of bail? And to somebody who can post a bail bond, that can be the least restrictive form of bail, instead of things like house arrest and ankle monitors. Judges will blanket New Yorkers with conditions if this legislation passes, because judges won't have the option for bail. So I would suggest to you to take some time and think this through. This is much more than just eliminating bail for certain crimes. It's a major policy shift. Thank you.
Senator Savino.
Thank you. Thank all 3 of you for your testimony and this book, which has quite a lot of information in it. I went back through our budget book, and I remember hearing Mike Green from DCJS talk about pretrial services, but there's no money in the governor's budget for it, and now I'm rather alarmed by seeing how much money this apparently is proposed to cost New Jersey, about $55 million for the pretrial services, because they thought they would pay for it through court fees, and the court fees aren't covering the cost. And so now the counties are being saddled with it. I think that's an issue that we absolutely have to be concerned about, along with some of the other issues that this has raised, because it doesn't look like we're paying for these services. And now, you've recently seen this happen in New Jersey. In other states, what are we seeing where they've implemented bail reform?
Well, certainly New Mexico has sort of followed the lead of New Jersey, and it's a similar problem. And to point out in New Jersey, I mean, you got to realize the county sued the state and said it was an unfunded mandate, and they lost because the governor acutely made the argument that it was required by the Constitution, which it wasn't. But it was a panel that basically said sorry, and it's millions and millions of dollars. And certainly you're going to have to fund it up in New York, because this bill says if somebody can't afford an ankle monitor, if somebody can't afford house arrest, the state of New York is going to have to pay for that. And that's going to be hugely expensive. And judges will be in a box of detention or blanketing with conditions, all of which have to be monitored. And I don't know how many employees would have to be hired to cover this.
And Judge Case,